You know when you've got so many questions and so many things that you want to do, but, you just don't know where to start off at? I mean, obviously, as an example, I'm going to use myself as an example. It's my podcast, I'm going to do what I like. Before I was wondering, so, Dorothy, she never forgot me? Or had this information been sitting there for decades? Or however how long it'd been, I don't know. Oh, well, guess not decades, but years, definitely. How long it'd been there, and, where was she now? And could I go and find her? Did she still want to see me? The answer to one of these questions was a resounding no. I could not just drop everything and go and find her, unfortunately, as much as I wanted to do so. Though I did ask Commander Spax if he knew this all along, before even meeting me. He said he'd only received this information the day before the crack opened. Tomlin asked him the next obvious question, well, when was the crack going to close? Commander Spax replied with, oh, probably within the next 10 minutes if she got it right. And sure enough, that crack closed. No more time travel for us. Well, at least not for now. Though there were obviously bigger questions still unanswered. I mean, how did this crack open? Was it just something random? Was it an accident? Was it deliberate? Was it some plot or whatever? Dunno. No one knew. To be honest, I didn't really care and wasn't that interested in finding out at the minute. I just had multiple things flooding my brain all at once. It was making my head hurt. I felt like screaming out. But I did manage to restrain myself. When we all got back to the USP base, we were given our next assignment or mission. They were never really clear on the terminology. I mean, some people at USP called them missions, others called them assignments. I don't know, what was the correct actual term? I mean, I don't know, I didn't just question it, I used both terms myself. But, just what is the correct term? But anyway, before I go on to that, I should probably look at the comments, being ignoring them for a bit after some of the ones I've been getting. Now, let's see. I guess, dear Donfrey, do you go to a barber's or a pet groomer's? The answer is neither. I have a specialist to cut my hair, for the thing that's all around my body. I go to them. Saying that, they're back on Earth at the minute, so yeah, next time I do need a trim, I'll go and see them. Still, that's more like it's more fair, more innocent sort of question compared to some of the stuff I've been getting as of recent. Donfrey, are you colourblind or do you see differently to how you did before? Well, for one, I'm not colourblind. In fact, my vision might actually be a bit better, to be honest. My eyes, generally see the same thing, but they can generally see up to a greater distance as well. So yeah, that is something that does come in useful. As well as this, my sense of hearing is also better than it was before I became this, and very useful things, to be honest. My senses seem to be slightly heightened, though not extremely. I don't know whether that is just because it's sort of a balancing out my alien half and human half, and whether it is truly half and half, I don't know. Yeah, well, anyway, enough of questions for now. Let's get on with things, shall we? So anyway, a next assignment or mission or whatever the terminology is that they want to go with. It was a box. This box was made of some sort of metal and was about the size of a shoebox. You could see on it that there was complex circuitry and that all around it, and it was sort of emitting sort of a faint sort of ominous glow. We were told that our task was simply to open the box. Unfortunately, the only way of doing that was to emit certain frequencies. And of course, what were these frequencies? They were unknown. So I was basically going to have to hum different notes until we somehow found a combination. The box also supposedly had clues on how to open it and what the correct frequencies were. So, this was our task for the day. I mean, it was a nice break to not have something life-threatening, or at least we hoped. We don't know what the box would actually do. So, it was nice to have something a bit more relaxing for a change. Though, as I would found later on, the stress of trying to open that, to be honest, I think I almost rather would be in a life-threatening situation. So me, Tom and Billy went back to our quarters to try and open this elusive box. We were told that scans revealed, as far as they knew, that the box wasn't dangerous and that there wouldn't be any lasers or anything shooting out of it. Billy got an app on his phone where it had various tones and pictures performed by some unknown vocal artist, seemed very generic, though it was at least something for me to mimic and copy perfectly. Tom then got a piece of paper and started making notes of every little combination that I did. We decided that every quarter hour I would get a bit of a break, because although I could perfectly mimic it, it does strain after a while. Not so much my vocal cords, but there's something in me feels a strain. So we would continue every 15 minutes. I would try various different combinations, which we didn't even know how long the combination would be. We knew that it would be between 4 to 8 notes, though that was all that they were able to find out about it. Then, after those 15 minutes of trying it passed, we'd have a 5 to 10 minute break in between. Obviously, we realised very quickly that this was getting us absolutely nowhere. And after about 2.5 hours, I just decided that I was done with this. Billy just said, come on, at least try for the rest of the day. I just said, I'm not trying again until at least they narrow it down to the correct number of characters or notes or whatever. Just get this done, because this is just too frustrating. I mean, it feels like they're just doing this to just lock us in the corner and that. They haven't told us what this box is, what's in it, or why it needs to be opened. Billy replied with, well, it was confidentiality. So what? I shouted. There seems to be a massive lack of trust between USP and us. Tom, rolling his eyes, said, oh, and I wonder why that would be. I glared at Tom and said, you're the one who was seeing about air justice and all that kind of other stuff. Tom got out of his seat and said, yes, and you were the one who bit my arm. I looked at Tom in confusion and said, but I thought we were all okay now. I thought we were back to where we were before, being friends and everything. Tom just glared back at me. Look, Donfrey, it takes a long time for me to forgive you fully and to stop being pissed off at you fully, but... he said. He then looked back down at the floor. Look, Donfrey, Billy, let's just calm down, because this is going to get us absolutely nowhere. Actually, I think you're right, Donfrey. I think we should stop until at least they give us some more information. Otherwise, I think this box is going to tear us all apart again. Billy then nodded in agreement. We then all went to report back to Commander Spatz, who wasn't exactly happy. He said various things to us, though the gist of it was, how dare you? You were given a direct order. After the fuss and the mess you made, you should be on your hands and knees begging to make up in any way you can. I think Billy was feeling a bit of slight regret. Tom was most likely thinking how this box would drive us all insane, and I was just having none of the way the Commander Spatz was talking to us right now. I then asked the question, well, tell us why the box needs to be open. What's it for? What is it? Where did it come from? Commander Spatz growled a growling stare into me. I locked in with his eyes. This time, Commander Spax was the one to back down, and in defeat he said, "I don't actually know myself." I then smirked at him, though with a bit of sympathy said, "You're just really in the same boat that we are, answering to a high authority and no idea why. Tell your bosses or benefactor or whoever that we require some more information to continue. You don't have to meet with all the requirements we've just asked, but at least an attempt of some of them would be nice." I then turned and left without looking back. Tom then slowly followed after, leaving Billy not sure whether to stay or to go, eventually deciding to follow me and Tom. As Tom and Billy caught up with me, I stopped them both in the corridor and said, "Let's go back to the quarters. There's something I'd like to talk to you two about. In private." Tom just nodded at me, and Billy had a slight bit of confusion on his face, though he knew he couldn't exactly go grovelling back to the commander. It was odd, though. Billy seemed to be, as I said before, evolving, changing, becoming his own person, though he didn't seem quite sure on what type of person he was going to be. Whereas Tom, I think, realised that no matter what, we had to sort of stick together through this. I think that's most likely why he stopped his arguments and just agreed with me. All of us knew we probably wouldn't make it through another repeat of what happened when we went to see USB's benefactor, so it would be better just to forget our petty squabbles and just move on. We then got back to our quarters. I turned to Tom and said, "You sure there's no cameras in here, or any listening devices? Because although what I'm going to talk to you about, is not exactly, I don't know, maybe not deserving of... Look, it just makes me feel better, okay? Because I like to have a private conversation with my friends. It's just hard to explain, but I know you're very thorough, so are there?" Tom gave a reassuring smile and replied with, "Nope, actually scoured the room. Nothing. This seems to be our one completely private area." I then sat on my bed and gestured for Billy and Tom to sit on theirs. "So," Tom said to me, "what is it you need to talk to us about?" I looked at both Billy and Tom at the same time and said, "Various things. So, obviously, one of the things on my mind is Dorothy. I just want to know what happened to her. Is she even still alive? For all I know, she could be dead. Or just whatever happened. I mean, I know both of you are going to say, well, you only met her for a few hours, but it just didn't feel right just abandoning her like that in the situation that she was in. But you know what? I think I'm going to let that pass for now because there's something else I've been thinking about. And it's been something that I wanted to find out for quite a while. Billy and Tom both looked at me and waited for me to reply. I want to find out about the species that I've mixed my DNA with. I just want to find out who and what I am, because at the moment I just don't know. I just don't exactly know who I really am anymore. And I've never really questioned it before until now. I don't know, maybe they can do a blood test or DNA test or something just to narrow it down, or, even if they don't find out the species, just narrow it down to some possibilities. I thought Tom would say something at this point, but actually it was Billy who was the one to speak. He said to me, "I know exactly where you're coming from, and I think doing this for USP is maybe make us all question a bit who we are. So, I'm with you, Donfrey. Let's find out who you are. Tom then stood up and stood in front of us. He then started to pace the room, thinking to himself. Even with my more sensitive hearing, all I can hear was a few mutters. A few words I did pick up was, "This is a DNA testing level for DNA up, left, right, but there could be a blood fusion test right, corner up and left. But the commander's doing this box. Feel a good yes, 487. Tom?" I said, slightly confused. He then quickly spun around and turned to me and said, "We'll do all of it." I looked puzzlingly towards him. He then continued, "We'll do a blood test, we'll do DNA scans, we'll do physical appearances. Do all of it. Investigate all of it. Then we'll be able to narrow it down a lot easier, if they don't get a certain match already." I then stood up myself and said, "Well, what are we waiting for then? Come on, let's do it." Well, it turns out obviously they could get my DNA from my blood, so we went to go get that done. And, well, obviously, I had to get a needle in my arm. Now, some people are obviously squeamish about needles, but to be honest, you can't even really feel them. I think the main problem is why are they such a bright fucking yellow colour? You know, usually they're in also a big bright yellow bucket. It looks like it's a hazardous material or something. I mean, yes, they technically are. If, you know, you were stabbed with one and it broke off and then you were bleeding out, then yes, but you know you'd be bleeding a little bit. I don't know, I mean, it's a way to make needles and that look a bit friendlier. I don't know, but regardless, it's just one of those things, you know? It's not the needle itself that hurts and that, it's just like if they're injecting something into you, you know, like antibodies, that your body's going to have a reaction to it. And that could hurt, or, you know, feel a slight bit of pain, or whatever. So, it's not the needles themselves, really. It's what either they inject into you, or whatever they take out of you, that you should be afraid of. Now, obviously, when they ask us why these tests were necessary, and why they needed to be doing this, you know, so urgently, we sort of extended the truth, saying that we were unable to fill out some important, you know, paperwork and properly get us registered, which, with USP, which meant that we weren't able to do important assignments / missions / whatever that we were required to do, so they were required to do immediately since they were important, blah, 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 blah. I mean, you know, it technically wasn't a lie. We weren't technically fully 100% registered because under species, I just put human-other, you know, so, yeah, a bit more detail could help. They said to come back in an hour or two, which is when Billy suggested that maybe in the meantime we should have another go at the box. I don't think either me or Tom were particularly very eager to get back to it. Me, because it was frustrating and a strain on me by this point. And Tom, because he knew that, well, this could break us apart even more, and cause us all to be suffering. I then finally asked Billy, "Why are you so eager?" Tom's normally the eager one and that to be doing stuff like this, you know, the whole justicey kind of thing, the sensible thing. Billy shrugged, then sighed, then finally replied, "Look, Donfrey, I basically lived in your shadow for years and years and years, admiring you all that time. You know, you're confident and that, and you always seem to be somewhat sure of yourself, and, you know, maybe I do still admire that, and at the time, you were the person that I wanted to be. You know, you had everything that I wanted. Fame, fortune, being beloved by people. And I know, technically, you still do have it, just not in the, you know, the mainstream sort of love for celebrities and stuff like that, but, you know, ever since we came out here and that, it's made me realise that maybe you're not the one I should try and be like, and maybe I should try and be more like Tom, really. I mean, he seems a lot more level-headed, a lot more sensible, and, well, I'm not trying to be horrible, but seems just generally like a better person, a better role model. And maybe that can help me properly to become my own person, rather than living in anyone's shadow. I wasn't exactly sure how to take this in. I mean, Billy was being honest with me and Tom, so I appreciated that, but it also felt disheartening at the same time. It felt like I failed him in a way, that, being sort of his role model. I mean, obviously we were practically the same age, but then again, I couldn't really disagree with him either. People really shouldn't try and be like me. I mean, if I haven't made it clear to you already, or it hasn't, hit you on the head, I'm not a very good person. I try to be, but I just can't control myself a lot of the time. I disobeyed orders from USP. I pretty much abandoned Dorothy. I'd bitten Tom and pretty much broke us apart. And our relationship with each other and that was only just hanging on by the point of that we knew that we just had to carry on with things. So, although I was feeling a bit reluctant, I agreed with what Billy had said and made a bit of a compromise, saying that I would try it for another 15 minutes, and then if we still can't open it, then, well, we'll wait until we get some more information about it. Billy agreed to that. Tom, still feeling a little bit unsure on whether we should actually attempt it again, after the frustration it brought last time. Did agree, though, in small doses we should be okay, and not lose ourselves in insanity. After all, insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, but expecting different results, which is exactly what we were doing. And lo and behold, when we did try, or should I say more like me, trying nothing. Still nothing. It was still a mystery box that we knew absolutely nothing about. After that, we, sort of went on a bit of a nostalgia trip. Just talking about the past and that, all the things that we'd done. For the first time, really, since we joined USP, it felt more like we were, friends just chatting again about regular things that friends just chat about, rather than, talking about work or talking about how we feel. It was just like regular conversation, like, oh, remember when we did this? Remember when we went on this gig? Remember when we went to Italy and met at Eiffel 65? Like, yeah, all good things. It's stuff like that you just miss. And to be honest, I think it was the first time we'd had a proper chat like that, even before then. I mean, before we went to USP, I'd just been in my flat, completely pissed out of my mind with Billy. Flat house, place? Oh no. A single-floored house that had floors. See what I did there? Then, finally, it was time to go back to the DNA testing lab. They tested my blood along with physical appearance and eliminated any human genes in my blood. Try and narrow it down. And actually, to my surprise, they'd narrowed it down to one species. They'd found a match. They told me, you have DNA of a scarverer. The obvious question was, obviously, what is a scarverer? They said it was an endangered species. Not much is known about them. In fact, actually, literally nothing is pretty much known about them other than they are endangered and they have certain abilities of mimicking. This was obviously a disappointment to me. I thought that, they would have information, maybe a database on different species, but not a scarverer. Still, though, I did know something that I didn't know before. So this meant I could now fill in the information on me as a human. I should probably think of what I'm going to say before I say it. And to be honest, how come I was struggling with the word human just then rather than Scarborough? Is this part of me changing? Or not? Don't know. But anyway, I could now fill in the form seeing that I was a human Scarborough. I also asked for the percentage of how much of me was human, how much of me was Scarborough, and they said it kind of depended, since the blood sample that I gave was around 70% human and 30% Scarborough. However, they did decide to take another blood sample. This time they took it from my face, which, wasn't as comfortable. But the one that came from my face revealed that that one was more 60-ish, 50-60-ish% Scarborough, and the rest being human. So it depended on what part of my body it was. I don't know, it didn't seem to be a perfect mix, so it was hard to get a general idea on it. Though, after all this, what did it mean in the end? It did give me sort of a sense of purpose. Now that I knew, obviously, the species name, and maybe I could go out looking for one. Obviously, they'd have to be looking somewhat like me. Their facial features and that must be somewhat similar to me if I, have 50 to 60% in common with them. So, yeah. So, let's go find out who I am, shall we? And you lot are coming along with me.